Now let's get to the functionality of the coaching staff. And I don't expect, and you will be able to fill me in much better, but in reviewing the situation with the NCAA, and of course, Seth Wallace will be in charge as the interim coach, and Kirk Ferentz on the sidelines. Our buddy Jackson is letting us know that this is a trivia question that is circulating here. Saturday will be the first game without Kirk Ferentz or Hayden Fry on the sideline as head coach since November of 1978 against Michigan State. Can anybody guess who that coach was? I can. All right. We don't know if anyone's answered that in the chat, but just a little trivia for everyone because it's been a long, long time. No other university can make that kind of claim, putting two coaching tenures together to take us back from 2024 to 1978. That's 46 years.
So I'm going to guess that Jackson is right on this because I don't know that Hayden never missed a game. I don't know that to be true. I mean, Jackson's saying that. I'm assuming he's right. Yeah. But yeah, Kirk hadn't missed a game, hasn't missed a game to this point. So it will be different. But he was asked today about just the practicality of being on the sidelines and what that means as a head coach. And he kind of downplayed it as you would expect him to. He thinks that the days leading up to game day are more consequential. And frankly, Mark, I think that's certainly true. You know, that's why these suspensions are not a one-size-fits-all thing, because if you got a head coach who's a play caller, it leaves a bigger impact. But for a guy like Kirk Ferentz, it's probably not as big of a deal. It is, I believe, when he says it's more important that a head coach is there, you know, he's talking about himself, you know, Monday through Friday night, and he's going to be there through, you know, Friday night at 11:59 p.m. He talked about during his press conference feeding the team a snack and then reading them a bedtime story. So, you know, that's not going to be a whole lot that changes. It will be weird. You know, wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall of Kirk Ferentz's living room during that game? And I can picture it. I mean, you know, he's going to be very quiet. I mean, I just think it's like, I don't want to know what to compare it to. Brett Bielema, remember during COVID, he was out, and I think Fox during one of their games, didn't they talk to him from his home?
That's right.
I remember that, and that stands out to me because it was rare circumstances.
Well, this is something now that you have to share, that you have in common as a point of camaraderie with Michigan fans, because they're used to this. They're used to coaches being suspended left and right. You know, they missed like 6 games. Harbaugh, I don't even know if we could credit that guy with a national championship. He wasn't there for half the season.
Also,
he was sitting at home most of the time.
Can I just bring this up for a second?
Of course.
Kirk was asked today, and he basically said, not interested in addressing it. I'm going to leave it to the powers that be. Take the high road. Great. Kirk's done a great job of that in recent time. Do we want to talk about Illinois State briefly, Mark?
Yeah. So Iowa's a 23.5-point favorite. The over-under from Vegas is 41.5. So I did the math here. Iowa should win this game 33-9.
33-9. And how many total yards for Iowa? You want to take a guess at that for Saturday?
Let's take our shot at that. I'm going to say, and again, both quarterbacks should play. If I'm running the show, Seth Wallace, I'm playing both quarterbacks, and ultimately I want to throw the ball about 30 times. And so I want to see Brendan Sullivan throw 15 times and Cade McNamara 15. Now, of course, you can't control it to that degree, but that's what I would like to see. Let's see if Iowa can get themselves to 375 yards of total offense on Saturday.
Well, they only averaged 235 a year ago.
I know. 375 is not much.
Yeah, but that would be I think that'd be a good start. Because that would be, let's divvy that up a little bit. The game's going to likely look a certain way if they're successful offensively. It's probably going to be, I would guess, game. Now, some of this is scouting, and I'm going to be coming out with a preview once I do a little bit more digging on Illinois State this evening. I know quite a bit about that team and the makeup and the senior. They got a lot of experience back as well. They're well coached. Kirk talked about that today. But I do anticipate, especially game one without Kirk on the sidelines, you're going to see, ideally, 65 to 70% run. Maybe that's a little high, but maybe 60 to 65% run. And if they do that and say you can get 200 yards on the ground, I think they're fine with $150, $175 through the air. You don't need to throw very much. Iowa had problems getting 100 yards through the air last year. So, I think it's okay to say 150 is a good goal for week 1, assuming you run the ball well. And if they don't run the ball well, they may have a problem getting to 150 through the air. If they're able to throw to open up the pass to open up the run Saturday, I'll be shocked. I don't think that's how the passing game gets going. It's going to have to be predicated by a successful ground game. And I'll be surprised if they come out there against Illinois State, who I get solid program, good defense, they're top 25, best conference in the FCS. But if they come out Saturday and can't run the ball and look like they have in past, like South Dakota State a couple of years ago, that'll be concerning because that's not where we're waiting for an evolution. I've said, hey, pump the brakes in the passing game at least until late September, early October. And I'm hoping by then they kind of get their feet under them. What brakes are we pumping for a rushing attack that's got a bunch of experience back and an offensive line that's got basically 5th and 6th year guys everywhere? There, besides just, the pre-snap motion and stuff, they've had all spring, all fall to work on that. It's a new offense. Yes, there'll be some different blocking schemes and obviously a few different plays in there, but they should be able to run the ball effectively right away. That's what I'd be looking for if I'm an Iowa fan. Forget the passing game. Yes, it'd be nice to see some signs of life there, but look for the passing game Saturday. If they can run the ball for 200 yards on the ground against a good Illinois State FCS program, check mark. Move on to week 2 against Iowa State and game plan for another really good defense and an even better secondary.
You provided a nice counterpoint to my quarterback approach that I presented last week. What I would do if I was, at the time, Kirk Ferentz, but Seth Wallace, and I'm sure, of course, he's going to be guided by Kirk in terms of how to handle this quarterback situation, of course, going into the game. And you backed me off on it by stating this isn't just any other team. Look at the lack of success the last couple seasons and what this team needs to establish. They need, if they get into a rhythm, if they're producing points, if they're productive on offense, they need to stay with it and build upon that. And I totally got that point, and I thought it was a fair point and an excellent point, and I certainly backed off to a certain extent. But at the same time, I'm driving hard with playing 2 quarterbacks because I just think that they're so comparable and they're so even that I want to see them in a competition that is a different pressure than what Illinois State provides, or the 75,000 at Kinnick, or the national TV audience, or any of that provides. It's the pressure of competing against a guy that you just watched take the team 68 yards for a touchdown. And you got to go in there now, and you got to do it.
And I want to define what I said here for a second. I agree with you. I want to see him play 2. Don Patterson wants to see him play 3. And that doesn't mean you're going to give Marco equal snaps, but hey, bring him in for a play or 2 that you have ready. And give Iowa State one more thing to see on tape. Don't let Marco have his first snap of the season against the Clones, but give them something to keep him up at night during Cyhawk prep. The other thing is this. They can be really efficient on the ground and kind of be vanilla through the air while still playing multiple quarterbacks. And then what you're looking at is, okay, we've been Cade, and this is their own doing. They've had Cade taking most of the snaps against the ones through fall camp, but now we have actually an even situation. We're not just putting Brendan Sullivan in during garbage time, but an even situation here on Saturday against Illinois State. And even if one guy is, 5 of 6 through the air, 5 of 7 through the air, the other guy's 8 of 11, we're going to go break down that tape and look through it with a fine comb and determine, okay, did we take something away by playing multiple guys? And regardless of if we did or if we didn't, which guy played better in the snaps that he got? And I do think you can still do that with a ground-focused attack. It doesn't mean Iowa shouldn't run some of what Tim wants to run to his receivers, etc. Saturday. They should, absolutely. But I still think you've got to get the ground game going. And that's Kirk deferred to Tim today when asked about, how things will be different without him. If you have questions about the offense, they should go to Tim. We're going to, by the way, get assistant coach availability by Zoom on Wednesdays starting next week. So regardless of what happens with I don't know if Tim will be first. Last year, Brian Ferentz faced the media first. I think it was last year. Was that the year before? I get the two mixed up. But we'll get the assistant coaches on Wednesday mornings. But it will obviously be interesting because here's the deal. You want to establish a ground game, but the other reason you don't want to just throw 100% vanilla through the passing game is, again, you have a much more difficult assignment in the secondary the following week against Iowa State. That is a really good group of defensive backs between Jeremiah Cooper and Bo Freeler and Malik Verdon. They're really experienced and really good. Might be the best DB room in the Big 12. So, be happy that you're not starting with that. But, keep those DBs honest, right? Show against Iowa State that you're going to have to play up on us to stop our running backs. And don't let them just sit back. And, Iowa's just, it all starts with the run game. I sound like a broken record. I sound like Kirk, but that really is the truth of the matter, and it always will be under Kirk. And that's okay. You can still be innovative offensively and want to be ground focused while having a good passing attack with better play calling.
Yeah. Identity. Good offenses, good defenses have an identity, and that's Iowa's identity. That doesn't mean that you are poor at the other aspect of the game, running or passing. That just means that you lead with your strength. Absolutely. Appreciate y'all being here at the Voice of College Football. Corey and I get together every Tuesday at 4:30 Central. So we do this every Tuesday, and we hope you'll make it on back next week because, of course, that's going to be a big one as we preview Iowa State. Catch Corey and Don Patterson after the game, immediately after the game on From the Hawkeye of the Storm. You may run into it here as well, but we would want you to get on over to the Hawkeye of the Storm because From the Hawkeye of the Storm is where you just might as well find your Iowa football coverage every day. And then Corey's going to make it on back. Do we know what time on Sunday with your part two?
TBD, but it'll be evening. We typically do an evening show, and I believe there's no NFL starts not this weekend, but the following weekend, correct?
Correct.
So we'll try to take advantage of that because you hate to interfere with Sunday Night Football. A lot of the people who are watching the show and love Hawkeye football love watching the NBC broadcast on Sunday night. So we'll be sure to do it Sunday night, myself and Coach Patterson, but we will have post-game coverage on Saturday as well.
I won't even attempt to try to convey our schedule here at the Voice of College Football now that we're in season. I think I'm going to be recording a programming update, and we'll post that on the national channel. Just too much to tell you about here. I will make emphasis of one thing. We've got a 24-hour live stream starting at 5 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday, and week one kicks off on Thursday night. A number of Big Ten teams in play, including Minnesota taking on North Carolina. So you'll see me at 5 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday morning. We'll take you on through the day.
And are we going to get our appearance from our favorite Gopher on Thursday morning with you?
We might.
Gopher Guru.
Yeah.
That'll be a fun one. Who won that game last year?
North Carolina, 31-13.
Okay. That was at Chapel Hill.
Yes.
Now you get a game back in Minnesota. So go Gophers. I haven't made my picks yet. That's something I got to do. But I will probably take North Carolina again. But yeah, it's just fun to have it back. And Hawkeye Howard in the chat, he says, if Levi comes on next week, we have to rip on him.
Well, that's
rip away, Hawkeye Howard. Rip away.
Well, that is what we are intending for next week.
Great.
Can't wait. Our Cy-Hawk preview.
Who does Iowa State play this week?
I don't know.
Midwest Valley Tech Community College.
It's one of they lost to Ohio last year.
They did, and that game was later in the year. It's not UNI because UNI gets Nebraska.
They're playing North Dakota.
And that's a They're Missouri Valley, right? They're not Missouri Valley?
I don't remember.
You need to study up on your
No.
Yes.
I've got way too much to deal with.
Again,
looking at North Dakota. That's a team that held Iowa to that 7-3 game, right?
No. Are you kidding me? Did you seriously just ask that question? Are you serious?
Who was that? North Dakota State.
South Dakota State, who won who's 2-time reigning national champions. Are you kidding me?
You don't beat anyone in the FCS 7-3.
What do you think? What are you trying to be cute now?
I'm not trying to be cute. I just didn't know who I thought that was the same team. I didn't know who Iowa beat for sure. I knew they played in one of the Dakotas.
North Dakota is in the Missouri Valley, for people that are wondering. Here's a quick lesson for you, Mark. Missouri Valley, Northern Iowa, South Dakota State, North Dakota State, Youngstown State, where Bo Pelini went to coach. Is he still at Youngstown? Do you know?
I don't know.
You don't know. Missouri State, Southern Illinois, Indiana State, Illinois State. Best conference. Did I say Western Illinois? Did they leave the conference? Again, you don't know. But best conference in the FCS, hands down. Illinois State was picked 6th in the Missouri Valley, Mark. They are top 25 preseason. That shows you the strength of the Missouri Valley Conference.
We talk about the FCS that much on my show. Somebody asked me the other day, Mark, do you know every power conference quarterback, starting quarterback? And I said, absolutely, I do. That's what I know.
Well, let me just say this. North Dakota was actually picked one spot above Illinois State in the Missouri Valley. They were picked 5th. So Iowa and Iowa State have very similar assignments week 1.
Yeah, what if they go into their rivalry game both 0-1?
What a beautiful thing that would be, wouldn't it? Let's hope that doesn't happen for the sake. I don't want Iowa State to lose. I want that to be a good win on the schedule. I want that game to be big. It's good for both teams. I do not want to see them lose to North Dakota. And I think that'd make them hungrier for week 2.
I agree. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football again. Saturday with Corey after the game. Coach Don Patterson, of course, as well.
Oh, and Corey, by the way, real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you. The comment by King Davis I have to address. He says, LOL, the FCS is horrible. Okay, the FCS is horrible. Then high school football is horrible. Little League baseball is horrible. Your Madden skills are horrible. So basically everything, I'll say college football is horrible. If this was an NFL show, I'd say college football is horrible. Again, please understand what you're saying before you say it. Go ahead, Mark.
Because you understand, when I disregard facts and statistics and situations in FCS, it's not because I think FCS is horrible. I'm not disrespecting the level of play. I'm just saying I don't have time to keep up with it.
And you're not interested in it. I do think FCS at the Voice of College Football is an excellent idea, but you'll never pursue it.
It's not that I'm not interested. If you told me, Mark, this is what you need to do, you need to sit down and watch this FCS game, I wouldn't be tortured by it. I would enjoy it.
Tortured. Yes, you'd be tortured by it. No,
well, there are some sporting events that you've brought up that I've said, yeah, that would be near torture.
Have you watched a women's basketball game ever since the Caitlin Clark stuff? Have you sat down and watched one?
I have not watched a women's basketball game since I was paid to watch a women's basketball game.
Well, I wanted to know because you've commented on Caitlin Clark and acknowledged that she's terrific, but I'm just curious if you've ever just been like, hey, I got nothing else to do this evening. I'm going to sit down and watch a Fever or a Hawkeye game. I don't know. Hey, I'm not in the home of Mark Rogers on a day-to-day basis. I don't know what's going on.
Have not done that. I have stuck up for Caitlin Clark because I think she's being mistreated out there on social media.
And can you admit that she's a superstar?
Of course she is.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, there was a time. There was a time like a year and a half ago where you're like, I've never heard of. I don't know who that is.
I was just being truthful. I had never heard of her.
I said I can't imagine people not knowing who she is, and you're like, well, I've never heard of her. But now you can't claim that. I mean,
of course I can't.
So
we were probably a month to 6 weeks out before the NCAA tournament last year, 2023. That was probably the time in which you made some kind of comment. And I was like, who's that? I don't know who she is. That's when I learned who Caitlin Clark was. I can thank you. I'm sure I would have found out within a week otherwise. because obviously she's everywhere.
One more response to King Davis. This comment is a better comment when he says, no FCS team should be able to keep up with a now Power 4 team. There's a huge size difference, speed, strength, etc. Hey, that's a better argument. All right. We can have that discussion. However, the data would also say that the best teams in the FCS regularly challenge, the non-power, the non-top tier Power 5 teams. Like Iowa State struggled against FCS. Iowa has struggled. Kansas State has struggled. Some of those teams have lost. So I'm just saying that. And I know he said Power 4, but we just saw an FCS team, a really good program in Montana State, knock off an FBS program this past weekend in New Mexico. I know they're not Power 5, but I mean, I'm just saying there is crossover there.
Yes, there is crossover
to level.
Yeah.
It's not it's not like 1 through 130 and then, like North Dakota State and South Dakota State are 131, 132, and you just go on down. There is crossover.
It is somewhat similar to the crossover between the Power 4 and the Group of 5.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. I don't know who's the best team. Are you projecting the playoff? Who do you have G5 that's in the playoff?
I've got Tulane.
So, I mean, if Tulane were playing this weekend against Indiana, I bet you're picking Tulane on a neutral field, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there's a 10 or 12 team over, maybe not quite that many, somewhere in that range.
This will make King Davis 73-74 happy. I'll say it. If Iowa or Iowa State lose to either one of those teams, there are major problems. If either struggle, it's inexcusable and there are major problems. And I'll be the first to come on here and say that next week. I think, I don't think you can just play margin of victory and compare, with style of play. It's just hard to do that. Iowa, if Iowa wins by 17-24, I'll be like, okay. But again, it's all about how we get there, right? So I've seen Iowa blow teams. It's been a while, but I've seen Iowa put up 50 on teams like Eastern Illinois, but that didn't mean a whole lot at the time. But if you're going to play an FCS program, I would rather play a team like Illinois State. To me, playing anybody other than a Missouri Valley Conference team makes no sense because you gain nothing by playing a team in the Patriot League or in one of these other leagues. Play a Missouri Valley Conference team, but don't play, for Pete's sake, don't play South Dakota State or North Dakota State, or even UNI, frankly, because those teams are just so good every year. Don't play Montana. Don't play Montana State. Don't play Incarnate Word right now. Don't play James Madison. Don't play Eastern Washington. Like, there are teams, just like in the FBS, that are good every single year. To me, that's foolish to play them.
I'll show you my knowledge of the FCS. James Madison is now in the FBS.
Well, you're right. I'm sorry. I knew that. I don't know why. I was thinking Eastern Washington. Yeah. In fact, Indiana, their head coach was James last year, correct?
As soon as we're done here, I am going to go online and I'm going to read through all the FCS divisions and conferences and reacquaint myself.
Wonderful.
That's what I'm going to do.
I cannot wait. And make sure you include Utah Tech, formerly known as Dixie State, because I told you about that big game they got coming up against Abilene Christian, the battle of the former Iowa quarterbacks.
It's a big one. All right.
No pun intended. No pun intended. Big one.
A big one.
Based on who's quarterbacking. Go ahead, Mark.
It's mammoth. Yes. College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.